Rankin County, it's our pleasure to welcome now Tony Jeff. He's the president and CEO of Innovate Mississippi. Tony, thanks for coming on.
Oh, so glad to be a part of this. I appreciate y'all being here today.
So this event, I've watched it through the years, as you have. It just seems like it gets bigger and better with more interest, more exhibitors, just more action every year, huh?
It really has. This is our 26th annual event, our conference. We bring everyone together from the ecosystem. This year in particular, we were excited. We brought in working closely with the small business development centers as well, because although Innovate Mississippi, we call ourselves kind of the Shark Tank for technology startups, the SBDC works with a lot of other businesses that are not necessarily investor-focused, more bankable, but that basically gives everyone in Mississippi who's got a startup or small business a place to go.
Well, speaking of bankable, we were talking to Jamie Miller with the Gulf Coast Business Council earlier. So you bring together the entire ecosystem here. You've got technology startups that are pitching their ideas to potential investors so that they have access to those who have capital that may have an interest in funding their idea. But you've got lawyers, accountants, advisors, consultants, potential partners as well.
That's exactly right. So we have 8 regional partners, and each of them are trying to build in each area of the state their own ecosystem. That obviously starts with the ideas, the companies, but mentors to mentor the companies, those service providers, and frankly, it takes a special kind of lawyer, accountant, or someone like that to work with startups. Those service providers are really important. And then even the investor networks. I think it's best to start local, and we've really tried to build those from the local regions up to statewide, and now the whole Southeast. We've had investors here from all over.
Yeah, which is fantastic. So they're paying attention to what's going on in Mississippi, and they're seeing that this is a good place to launch a new business in the technology industry.
It really is, and so we've seen several companies over the years that investors would be. We'd have Mississippi investors, but then we'd also have some from New Orleans or elsewhere. And as those deals have been successful, they're always asking us for more. So we would certainly we only work with Mississippi-based companies, but a lot of the funding, a lot of the investors are all over. And as long as they're investing in Mississippi, we're all for that.
So talk a little bit about the services you provide to these entrepreneurs, these startups. Many of them come to the organization Innovate Mississippi with just that, an idea, and they're looking for guidance. Where do I go from here? How do I get this idea from out of my head to some good or service that we can sell to the market?
Well, and we really do like to catch them at the idea stage, because we think we can help them through kind of a coach and connect model to work through the process better than if they're out there on their own for some time. But we will take them at every stage, and sometimes we find them 2 years later after they've already been working through things. But we really help them set up that step-by-step process to become an investor-ready deal. And then when they reach that point, and we can bring them connections during that whole process.
Sure.
And then when they reach the point of being an investor-ready deal, we have an investor network, we have angel funds we've helped set up, and we now have a way to match that funding through a venture fund that we now manage.
Yeah. Well, if somebody has an interest listening to us right now, Tony, what should they do if they've been thinking about something that they want to create and they need guidance to get going? What should they do?
Well, the easiest thing, just through our website, innovate.ms, there's a big green button that says Get Started. And through that button, they can, as a founder, submit an intake, and we can then follow up with them. Also, is if they want to be a mentor to these companies or a service provider that's willing to work with these companies, many of which could be great, but it's something, they do have their own quirks when they're small.
Yeah.
They can all start that with the Get Started button on our main website at innovate.ms.
Talk a little bit, Tony, about the success the organization has had, where you've had just that, guided an entrepreneur through the process. They got out on their own, became self-sufficient, and created very successful companies.
Yes, and that's been part of the fun of it. I think, many of these companies are very risky, but as they've grown, to watch them grow and then, in some cases exit and have their investors repaid and have good opportunities. We just have had in the last week, one of the companies closed a $1.1 million funding round. Campus Knot was that company that announced, and we've been working with them from the very earliest stages, proof of concept funding. And then another one, they're not quite ready for public announcement, but it's when talking to the investors is being acquired, is going to be a big opportunity. And that's just, that's happening all the time, but we're so excited to kind of work with them through that process.
So is there any requirement, Tony, when the organization works with a startup, you said they must be based in Mississippi, that they have to agree to stay here for a while in exchange for the services Innovate provides?
Well, where we've tried to implement those programs, we do have the Mississippi Seed Fund requires them to stay in Mississippi. They have to immediately repay if they receive that funding. But in most of the cases, we're trying to make sure we can connect them in a way that has them putting down roots and connections that make it hard to leave. And we found that a lot of those other artificial pieces make it more difficult on the company to grow. So the Mississippi Seed Fund is the only hard requirement that they stay in Mississippi, and that's required for the 3-year life of that investment when it's made. And then otherwise, we're trying to get them with local investors and those that keep them here, make sure they've got the roots down here.
Makes total sense. But so it's all about getting these Mississippi-based technology companies off the ground, and what we hope is that they stay here permanently and create big headquarters one day is what I'd like to see. Appreciate it, Tony.
Absolutely.
Thanks for coming on. Tony Jeff, President and CEO of Innovate Mississippi, has been our guest as we wrap up Hour 1 of